Hey friends, I hope the morning's treating you well. We haven't done this Saturday morning coffee thing in a while. I got my coffee with me. I'm in Crawfordsville, Indiana. I just got this from a local place. Amy had to go visit her dad today, and I thought, well, I have to do this, so I drove her out here. And I'm at Lew Wallace, General Lew Wallace's old place. If you Google General Lew Wallace, Crawfordsville, Indiana, you'll see exactly where I'm at. He's the guy that wrote Ben-Hur, and this is where he's from. Crawfordsville was actually quite the literary hub. It's a small town in Indiana, which is pretty great history. But all of that put aside, I want to talk about the Beatles stuff this morning. I want to tell you all about the tour and all of that, but I think it'd be best just to talk about the Beatles stuff. And I interviewed Kevin Harrington just a week ago. I mean, it was just about a week ago when I did the interview. And I want to tell you a little bit of history about that. His son contacted me, it's like 5 years ago. It was quite a while back. And he sent me a really, really nice email saying he loved my podcast and he liked the kind of things I did. And he's like, man, I just really think, you need to know about my dad. And at that time, I was like, well, that's nice, whatever. And I kept reading, and the next paragraph starts with, my dad worked for the Beatles, and he was on the roof, when they went and played on the rooftop. And then he just lists this long list of really cool things that his dad was there for. And I thought, yeah, I definitely need to make this happen. So I follow up, and it turned out his son lived in Berlin, if I remember right, and his dad lived in Milton Keynes, England. And I play there once every few years. And I had a gig, I believe, was scheduled. I had an off day on a tour about 3 years ago. We set up a time to go. I would go to Milton Keynes and I would interview him. But I ended up getting a gig like late, a week or so before, that got on that day, so I had to cancel. And I was worried that if it would ever happen again. But I had emailed back and forth with Kevin, say, man, he's just the coolest guy. He's really, really nice in the emails. And he's like, I'd really like to do this, someday. I'd like to meet with you and tell you some stories. And I'm like, man, I'd love for you to do that. But then I had tours canceled. I was supposed to be in Milton Keynes right when this COVID thing hit. Had that tour canceled, had follow-up tours canceled, and it's starting to wonder if it was ever going to happen. But when we announced this tour that I just finished, there was a little bit of noise close by. I think small town America, there's always somebody with loud pipes, I guess. But when we had this tour announced, I saw there was a date in Milton Keynes, so I emailed Kevin, and I'm like, hey man, I'm going to be in Milton Keynes on this day. Can we do it? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. That was months ago. So it finally comes up, and I was worried about having a place to do the interview. So I don't have, I'm in a hotel room. I didn't have any lights with me. I brought my camera. I brought the tripod in case we could make it happen, and the audio stuff. It was all pretty small. Here comes a trash truck, small town trash truck. Amy and I were just talking about how quiet small towns are as opposed to the city we live in. But anyway, I was worried about how I was going to do this. So I played the night before at the Stables. And a few days ahead of time, I asked my agent, Bob Patterson, it's like, man, can you talk to the people at the Stables and see if they have a room where we could record it there? So I paid a little bit extra for a hotel room that I thought we were going to record it there, and I saw in the listing they had a lot of windows that would be great light. And then when they checked me in, there was no exterior windows at all. And I was, man, this is the only reason I'm staying here. And they're like, we're sorry. They had some interior windows that had some kind of a skylight that sort of lit a little bit, just didn't work. And I asked Bob Patterson, I was like, can you ask the folks at the Stables if they have a room with a window in it where we could record this? And they were nice enough to let me do it. So I played the night before in the Stables. In the room where you see the interview, that was my artist's backstage area. That was my can't even think of what it's called. That's where I stayed, before I played and hung out. I came in the next day, I checked out of the hotel, came in there, met Kevin. We hung out for about 2 hours, recorded about an hour and a half of different stuff. There's so much stuff I wanted to get to that we didn't get to, that I hope one day down the road I possibly could. But when I left from Kevin, I had to go to Heathrow Airport, which I'm way north, I'm like an hour north of London when I'm doing the interview. So I had to go through London with all my stuff. I had to go, and I went to the airport to have a COVID test the night before I fly home. And so I went there and did that. It was just that day was just crazy. Actually, a few days in a row were just really, really crazy. And I'm kind of surprised everything went well and we pulled it all off. But and I got home and I just started thinking, okay, man, I'm going to edit some stuff and put it up and maybe people will dig it. And it seems like you guys are really digging that. Man, Kevin was super, super cool. He did a lot of, he was young. I think he was 19 when he started working for the Beatles. And then when he got done with that, he ended up working with Clapton. Man, there's so many people. He became a road manager and would go out on the road, which is what he wanted to do, but the Beatles weren't touring. He wanted to be on the road and traveling, and they weren't doing that. So finally he got opportunities with a lot of different bands, and like Tina Turner, the Rolling Stones. He tour managed the Rolling Stones and the Sympathy for the Devil tour, and I recorded him talking about that a little bit. I don't know whether I'm going to upload it or not, because the truth is he said he was drinking way too much in that period of his life and didn't really remember a lot of it and just really didn't have many stories. And I was thinking that says a lot about the Stones right then, that the tour manager could be drinking way too much to where he didn't remember much and blend in. That says a lot about where the Stones were right then. But man, he worked for Motorhead, tour managed Motorhead. He loved Lemmy, Judas Priest, Cheap Trick. Oh my goodness. He said tourist in one of the interviews was Dave Stewart and Annie Lennox. A lot of great stuff. He had just a bunch of wonderful stories and a really, really cool cat. I'm glad I got to share that with you guys. So the night before that we did that interview, he got to see some kind of a pre-screening in London of the Beatles film Get Back. And, so I hadn't seen it yet. And he was just really, really stoked because he thought that it was just really well done and he liked it. It showed what he remembered life being like around then. He thought it was a really great depiction. And so when I got home, I immediately started watching it. And I know a lot of you guys have watched it. And I apologize to those of you if you're over hearing me talk about the Beatles this week. It's just been 1 week of me, sharing a Beatles love fest. But I gotta say, that film, I've seen a lot of like music documentaries, stuff like that. And it'll take a year or so before I think I could say this with any kind of really knowledge or a basis on it. Right now, man, it might be the best thing I've ever seen as far as music documentaries. It's just amazing. Like to see, I'm trying to think of something that can compare to it of, you get to see Paul writing Let It Be. I mean, he's making it up. He's, or him humming Get Back and doesn't have words and they're just making it up right then. And I'm trying to think of what would be equal to that. If we had film footage that just appeared out of nowhere of Hank Williams writing I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry, I mean, what would be the equivalent to this footage, this amazing footage that's been in a vault for this damn long? Like, I can't believe there was anything like this that didn't make it out into the world. People share everything. They share too much. And somehow this had not made it out into the world. And I don't know, I just thought it was amazing. It really, I watched every bit of it in a very short period of time. I binged the whole thing. And I'm going to watch it again, and I'm going to watch it a couple more times as the years go by. I know some of you guys dug it and loved it or whatever and have seen it. I'd love to hear what you think about it. I'm going to say there are some of you watching this. I don't know, maybe you would have turned this off by now. But there are people throughout the years that you meet that say, You know, they hate the Beatles. Oh, the Beatles suck and all of that. And I think what they're doing most of the time, it's like this thing that happened during the punk rock era where people got tired of all this stuff before. And I totally get it. I completely get it. Where people got tired of things, so they would say these things suck. And but I think it's a bit of a pose. I think a lot of people love saying that the Beatles suck and they get a rise out of the rest of us, and you know, and then they look like they're real edgy or something. But I've said this for years. I like it when a person tells me they think the Beatles suck, because it lets me know right off the bat that I never ever have to pay attention to a single thing that person ever says about music ever again. They've done me a favor. I can just completely tune out. When somebody says, oh, the Beatles suck, man, they're no good, I know I never ever have to listen to a goddamn thing that person says about music ever again. It's all right if you don't enjoy the Beatles, if it's not your thing, whatever, but to just completely write them off as being worthless or whatever, that's, come on. Come on. I don't think there's anybody watching this that feels that way, but you know, just a couple things that pop into my head, moments that I really liked from the doc. There's footage of Yoko and Linda talking, I think, in the first episode. You can't hear what they're saying, but they're just like smiling and talking back and forth. And it's beautiful. You can tell they really like each other and they're really happy. It's just a nice, beautiful moment of these two. There's these moments when Yoko, the camera catches her just right and she just looks beautiful. And you can see everything that John loves about her, and you can see the love between them. You can also see the weirdness of, you know, when we've seen these pictures throughout the years where she's always with the band. But I think this documentary kind of explains a lot of that. There were a lot of people there. I mean, a lot of people. And if there's all of those people, you know, it's one thing when you don't bring your spouses, you know, your siblings or whatever to band practice or band things. I think that's probably usually a good idea to have that wall. But when you already have all of those people there, what's the big frickin' deal if your spouse, you know, or your brother or sister, or your parents come along or whatever, your friend, you've already got 30 people there. What the hell different that you don't even know half of them. So I thought that was enlightening. And then also, it was neat seeing Glenn Johns. I just talked about him in the video I did at John Bonham's grave. But Glenn Johns, I think of him, I don't think I have a picture of what he looks like in my head when I think of him. I just think of the albums that he was part of and this amazing musical legacy that he has. And I'm like, wow, that's Glenn Johns. And he looks kind of like a hipster kid or something, you know, 60s, late 60s. Looked kind of like a cartoon character of what you would think, you know, the late 60s rock and roll guy would be. And it was a little bit of it took me back, but as it went on, like as I watched, it's like, man, you can just see, I mean, you know the cat has like huge amount of substance, but if you watch him, when somebody's talking, every scene, if you see him in there, he is so intently listening to what, you know, if Paul is talking or Ringo or whoever, he's listening and he's completely engaged with everything that they're saying and trying to bring it in. And it just was like, that is such a good quality for a producer to have. And besides having all the technical knowledge and coming up with that 3-mic setup to mic John Bonham's drums and make them sound freaking huge without phasing issues. You know, he obviously had a big brain and knew what he was doing, but I really, really liked how he came across as the whole thing went through. And then there's Alan Parsons. Here comes a train. Alan Parsons shows up in different parts of it. And hang on a second, I'm gonna wait through this train. Right next. That's something they don't do. They used to build rich people's houses right next to the railroad tracks. They don't do that anymore. So I'm about 50 yards from a train track right over here. There's a wall between me and it, but it's nice and loud. But I will say, Alan Parsons shows up in some different, he's the tape op. Alan Parsons Project, Eye in the Sky. You've heard his songs, but I mean, he went on to be the engineer on Dark Side of the Moon. He's a freaking genius. He's there at Abbey Road cutting tape. He put together overnight the cash register sounds. That's the intro to Money, and he made it to where it's timed out into a 5/4 time. It's 5-beat measures. He's cutting tape physically and figuring out the time. I don't know. Think about the time and the math involved in trying to make the right tempo, for these measures. He ends up making a loop, a tape loop, not like a looper pedal like they would do now. None of this is digital. It's all tape. I don't know. Just to think of him cutting up tape for Dark Side of the Moon, the guy's a freaking genius, to be able to do that. And he's just the guy that's the tape op in the background. Looks like a young, handsome kid. And, I thought that was great seeing him pop up. There's probably other people I didn't even notice. But I thought that the director of the documentary that they were trying to make, it's Hogue, something Lindsay Hogue, I can't remember his name. If there was a bad guy in the movie, to me, he was it. He seemed like, I feel bad saying this in public, but we're all friends. Like, he seemed like the embodiment of every music industry douchebag that I've ever met. He just really did not seem to be speaking the same language as the Beatles. And he's trying to create these ridiculous situations for this film, this epic film of his. The guy's obviously talented because the thing looks great. All of the footage looks beautiful, and that reflects on him. But just the way he would talk with the band, it was not good. It just was not good. When you compare that to how George Martin, who looks nice in the suit, English gentleman or whatever, and the way he talks and reacts to the band, it's completely different. I mean, completely different, where it's obvious. I don't know. He's just not trying to push them into places they don't want to be. It's obvious they're the frickin' Beatles, the biggest band in the world. And hey, we're making a record. What do they want to do? I don't know. It's going to sell no matter what the hell they do. Let's see what they want to do. And this guy is lucky enough to be directing this TV special or whatever. It's going to be a huge deal. All they have to do is stay out of the way. It's the frickin' Beatles. So anyway, that guy rubbed me wrong, and I had a lot of post-traumatic Nashville stress kicking in whenever he would come on the camera. I hope that might not be fair to him, but that's the way he's depicted in the documentary to me. But man, I just loved George. You could just, I don't know. I love George. I'm trying to remember what he sang. It was something. It was do you know about Mr. Joe? I don't know. And that's where that began. It's like, what? I don't know. It's just beautiful to me. I'm curious what you guys thought of it. I'm getting a little bit of this off my chest so we don't have to talk about the Beatles forever. But I really, really thought it was a great documentary. I also thought Ringo Starr is like the best band member ever. You have to have some Ringos in the band. Plus, he's freaking great. If anybody tells you that Ringo sucks as a drummer, man, they're doing you a favor. You don't ever have to listen to a damn thing they ever say to you again. Ringo's great. He's like musical, plays songs, and elevates them. And then when you see how he is as a band member, where he's so easy to be around, he's just there doing the thing and happy to do the thing. And I don't know. I thought that if you take away everyone's talents, I think that I thought somebody was standing behind me for a second. If you take away everyone's talents and you're not thinking about the talents of each individual, you can see which band members, we'll say in each band member, if you've been in a band, you've played with each of these people before. They weren't as talented as these people, but the personality types of John, you can't go through a song without him going off on some big long tangent and being some chaos, bringing chaos to everything. And but it's John Lennon. He's freaking genius, so you put up with it. But as a band member, it was just, at least he was in a good mood all the time. but just always messing around. Is that guy in band practice or gal that just never stops noodling or playing or whatever when you're trying to get something done, you know. And then George, I can think of so many people I know who are really talented, but were within themselves and couldn't really communicate to the others, maybe because there's bigger personalities in the room, you know, and got lucky enough to have known a few people who have those Ringo traits who are just really great, you know, great hangs, great band members. They want to be part of a whole, and usually the people who survive as sidemen and women, stuff like that, have that quality. They're just easy and fun to be around, and they just want to make everything better, which George had that. He wanted everything to be better, wanted to be part of something. And then Paul, there has to be a Paul for anything to get done, somebody dictating, saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, you know. Now you're cracking the whip a little bit, not really being a jerk in the process, but, you know, I don't know. I could think of a lot of people throughout my years that fit each of those descriptions. None of them were on the same level of talents, you know. Maybe some were, but I don't know. It's the freaking Beatles. Nobody, it kind of breaks the scale in a lot of ways. But I'm curious. And also Billy Preston was just beautiful, you know. Every single thing he played was great. And also, my brain's like hopping around. The small town coffee's got me going. But John's guitar, that Epiphone, is that a Casino? That Epiphone with the dog ear P90s, it always sounds great. I mean, always. Sometimes it's a little out of tune, which I actually kind of like. I like how nobody has a tuner. They're all tuning to each other, so it's never completely perfectly in, which makes it way more interesting. I think records were way more interesting before everything was so perfectly in tune, and watching the Beatles play showed that. But man, I just hadn't thought. John had great tone. And there's this one scene where Glenn Johns, I can't remember if it was one of the engineers or George Martin, said, can you take the bass out of your guitar, you know? And John reaches down. He doesn't go to his amp at all. He reaches down and turns the tone knob on his guitar more trebly, which tells you John was adjusting the tone knob to where he was rolling off the treble and bringing in the bass. Who in the hell do you know that ever adjusts the tone knob on their guitar that isn't 60 years old or whatever? I just love that old school thing where they would actually change that. I guarantee you Kenny Vaughan is rolling back and forth on the tone knob and helping that shape his tone. And that was just beautiful to be reminded of a time when that was the norm, when people, you know, use your volume knob on your guitar instead of stomping on a distortion pedal or whatever. You just turn your volume up on your guitar and it makes everything better. It's just an old school way of playing that a lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about, and some of you might not, you know, but that's the way things used to be. And it was a nice window. There's so many windows in that documentary. If you've never like been full in on the Beatles, it's a lot to sit through. But if you're a big music nerd, which, I mean, come on, we're all watching this channel. You know, if you're still watching at this point, we're all so far down the damn rabbit hole. It's really, we're seeing. I mean, I signed up for Disney Plus to see this. I'm going to cancel it, you know, tonight. So I'll watch some Simpsons episodes, and then so I got it for 1 month. I got to see this for $7.50 or whatever. Anything to make me sign up for some streaming service, you know. I don't know, but it's a beautiful documentary. I'm curious what you guys think about it. I'm going to shut up because I'm going to keep going on. I thought about making one, like a dedicated video where I went way down the rabbit hole on what I thought about some of the stuff. And that might be a little too much for folks, but I don't know. People seem to be enjoying the stuff that I've uploaded to Kevin's. And if you haven't seen that stuff, man, go watch it. And I think I see Amy and Wendell walking around wondering when I'm going to stop yammering on this thing. But I'll post some more stuff since I'm home. It's good to be home, even though I'm in Crawfordsville, Indiana right now. And I'll post some more stuff. I have some things from the tour that I never got a chance to get around to. And, you know, I might be busy for the rest of this month uploading a lot of things. I might be, and then I'll just take a break at the beginning of the year and not be as busy. Maybe, I don't know. But Google General Lew Wallace, Crawfordsville, Indiana, and the guy that wrote Ben-Hur, and you will see exactly where I am right now. And I'll stop yammering and drink the rest of my small town coffee, and maybe I'll go lay a nickel on the tracks over here and make a wish. Anyway, take care of each other, and I keep wanting to say, boy, you're gonna carry that weight a long time, but anyway, here comes another train. Much love to you guys.